Okay. I call to order the committee of the whole meeting at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 11th of January, 2024, and ask for roll call.
Mr. Grossman,
Here.
Dr. Maharaj, Mr. Arkin,
Here.
Ms. Williams Lee, here, Dr. Livingston, Mr. Grandhorst.
Here.
Mr. Costi.
Here. I move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, independent contractors, and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employer or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. Collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, the placement of individual students in special education programs, and other matters relating to individual students. Litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Leila?
Second.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Dr. Maharaj,
she's going to give us a roll call.
Dr. Maharaj, Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Ms. Williams Lee. Yes. Mr. Brisbane.
Yes.
Mr. Grandhorst.
Yes.
Dr. Livingston, Mr. Costi.
Yes. We are returning to open session and our first segment is for public comment. Public comment will be please limit public comments concerning matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education to 3 minutes. This section is not intended to be a dialogue with the board, and any follow-up response time we estimate of up to 2 weeks. So we have a number of comments signed up.
We have
Lisa,
8.
will you
We have 8.
call them?
Mhm.
I'm going to just keep the clock, keep us moving from a time standpoint. So if anyone is getting to their time, you can give a 15-second warning just to wrap it up. And with that said,
You ready?
yes, please.
Our first speaker is Mr. Tim Milinovich.
Thank you, Superintendent Johnson, school board members, community members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Tim Milinovich, professor of biblical theology and chair of the theology department at Dominican University. Parent of Thomas Milinovich, sophomore here at OPRF, and my daughter is an incoming eighth grader, but incoming student. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Middle Eastern and North African Student Association and some of the unfortunate events that have been impacting them and other Arab American students, of whom my kids identify. And one of the problems that has impacted them is that there has been Arabic artwork taken down by employees of this school. And there have been accusations of students being called anti-Semitic simply for being Arab or for attending Middle Eastern, North African student events. This is unfair and inappropriate. And I hope that this board will be transparent and vigilant in addressing this. My kids are very proud of their Arabic background. They learn Arabic on the side in order to honor their grandfather who passed away 2 years ago tomorrow. I would be devastated if they had done something and put up their artwork to honor their heritage and their grandfather, and it was taken down and they were called discriminatory simply for being who they are. As a scholar of religious studies and theology, I deal with anti-Semitism on a regular basis, and I write about it on a regular basis. Anti-Semitism is a very real and terrible thing. It was extremely horrible, in particular, well, since the Greeks and Romans, but in particular in medieval times, and remains horrible today. But like anything, it can also be used as a political instrument against individuals' political foes. And there are times where anti-Semitism is used as an accusation against individuals simply for saying things that others don't like, for not sharing their ideology. Some individuals say that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic. That is inaccurate and inappropriate. Israel is a nation state. They are not elected by worldwide Jews. They do not represent worldwide Jews, nor are they a religious institution. You can criticize a nation state. Likewise, there are some Christians who support Israel, not because they support Israel or Jews, but because they want to have their particular prophecies fulfilled, that when Christ returns, a certain or appropriate number of Jews will convert to Christianity, meaning they're supporting Israel not for Jews, but for themselves. So to be clear, it is possible to support Israel and be anti-Semitic. It is possible to criticize Israel, just as 85% of Israelis do not want Netanyahu to continue after this war. It is possible to criticize the Israeli administration and not be anti-Semitic. I want to clarify those points, and I hope again that this board will be vigilant, transparent, and I'm grateful for Superintendent Johnson for meeting with us as parents to address these issues. I look forward to continuing those discussions, but I felt compelled, given the situation and given how things unfold, and given my position, I felt compelled to come and speak to you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karen Van Slyke.
Good evening. My name is Karen Van Slyke. I've been an Oak Park resident for 40 years. I'm a parent of OPRF graduates and my grandsons are on the way, so watch out. I'm currently the chair of the Oak Park-based Committee for a Just Peace in Palestine, Israel, which has been engaged in community events for over 20 years. I'm also a Jewish resident of this community. My family suffered oppression in Europe and discrimination here in the US. And I know that you are aware that in recent years, anti-Semitism, which is hatred and demonization of Jews, is a real and dangerous phenomenon as part of the growing white supremacist movement in this country. This is terrifying and deeply personal to me. Because I take this issue so seriously, I want to share my perspective on the pressure that the OPRF administration faced to cancel the events of the MENA student group, which hosted Professor Rashid Khalidi in December. I have followed Professor Khalidi's extraordinary scholarship on Palestine over the years. Many years ago, he was well received at a standing room only event at the Oak Park Library Veterans Room. I have heard him denounce anti-Semitism as well as other forms of racism and bias. To assert either that he is anti-Semitic, which was asserted, or that his scholarship could lead to anti-Semitic conclusions is entirely without foundation. I want to applaud the school administration for supporting the MENA student group's program with Professor Khalidi, despite misinformation and pressure to cancel it. Unfortunately, this kind of situation is not isolated. False charges of anti-Semitism have been ramped up against individuals and groups to shield criticism of Israel, which is a country. No country's history is above scrutiny and criticism. Throughout the United States, student organizations are being attacked. Scheduled public events are being canceled. Outspoken Palestinians are losing their jobs, and unfounded presumptions of anti-Semitism are being weaponized. So I want to express as strongly as I can, OPRF must continue to resist efforts that conflate the history, culture, and struggles of the Palestinian people with anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is bigotry and hatred of Jews for being Jewish. Criticisms of Israel's history and human rights violations are not anti-Semitic. And genuine anti-Semitic actions, demonization of Jews for being Jewish, should be dealt with in line with all OPRF policies on racism, hatred, including Islamophobia and anti-Arab statements and actions. Because I know this is the end of this discussion at OPRF, I want to share some Jewish voices that I have found helpful. Links to these articles are in the copy of the letter that I'm going to send to you tonight. The first is called A Dangerous Conflation, a letter signed by Jewish writers, and I should say signed by hundreds and hundreds, including people in Oak Park. And the second is For the Safety of Jews, Don't Weaponize Anti-Semitism, written by the former head of Hillel, the Jewish student group at Harvard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Hodge Herbert.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay, no pass. Thank you. Ms. Lila Masood.
I'm gonna make this brief. Hi. Hi, my name is Layla, and I just wanted to express my support from the Middle Eastern and African Student Association. I can tell you that growing up Arab American in the Midwest, I never had a book about Arab Americans. My history was never discussed at school, and there was certainly never a student group. Even when, like I grew up during the Iraq War and so on, and there was definitely bigotry, especially having parents that were foreign. And I never really had a safe space to talk about it with my peers or with my teachers who were generally actually not that supportive. So I really want to just support OPRF for having this club and for allowing students who grow up and having this unique cultural history and as a place to meet together with each other and a place to express our identity and feel safe in our identities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, forgive me if I mess up the first name, Faisal Alasbi. I know I messed up the first name.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Faisal Al-Absi. I'm a resident of Oak Park, and between me and my wife, we have 2 kids in high school and 1 on the way. So we love our community here. And there is a reason why we moved here. I moved from Chicago, and part of the reason is supposed to be a community that is inclusive, that is proactive instead of reactive. And this is one of the ways that Oak Park prides itself on, is having people who are more understanding, that actually have to go through and understand our situations and inclusivity in depth. One of the ways that I wanted to talk about today is the MENA Club and the treatment, the serious concern that happened, 2 incidents that happened in the OPRF high school. One is the removal of the art, and of course the other one is the speaker who came in to speak at the MENA Club. Both really are very concerning, because as an Arab American, as a Palestinian American who have kids, went to college in Nebraska, and I didn't seem to have kind of the same, I would say, rights that hopefully my kids would have here at this high school. But unfortunately, I'm seeing it's the same. And it doesn't, this seems like Oak Park or really any part, it seems the same. So that's what we're trying to change about it. And we're trying to have the school and the board accountable for the actions that our kids learn by coming here and learning that maybe my identity is in question. My identity does not fit where I was born, where I live. And what I'm trying to tell our kids, that your identity matters, your identity fits in this school. And I think the last thing that I just want to say is that we are working towards an advisory group that works with the board to help all of us come together to a better understanding. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
Next speaker, Ms. Rebecca Levine.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rebecca Levin, and I'm delighted to be speaking to you. I'm a 1975 grad of Oak Park High School, and our kids went to Oak Park High School as well, so I'm very familiar with this board group. I am delighted to talk with you. I was going to address some of the issues that you already heard, but I'd like to tell you about something that brings me great delight, and I wanted to bring delight to you as well. I was asked to speak to the MENA group when I got back from Palestine and Israel. I was there for October and November, and came back, and we got an invitation from the MENA students to come speak with them about what I had seen and what my experiences were. I came not knowing if I was going to have 45 minutes to try to give an overview of Middle East history, as we say on foot, or what was going to happen. I really had no idea. And what I found was a large group of students who were actually, quite diverse. I didn't know how diverse the student body group would be. They were quite diverse. And secondly, their level of knowledge and understanding of what was going on was quite sophisticated. And what we ended up doing was engaging in questioning each other, and questions were answered with questions, and people engaged in learning in a way that was highly sophisticated. And I was so impressed, so pleased. And this was not a class on Middle East, modern Middle East history. This was a club. And I just want to give kudos both to the faculty for leading this group. There were a lot of times during that session when they could have jumped in and put their own thoughts, and they didn't. Every time that something was put out there, a question was put out there, they turn it around using beautiful Socratic method, put it back to the students and say, where do you do? How do you think about this? What do we do with this? And it was really inspiring to me. And so this is a kudos to the faculty, kudos to the MENA Club, and kudos to the administration who did stand up to people saying you can't have these people speaking. Having Professor Rashid Khalidi here, as a couple of people spoke, he's an extraordinary academic. He is probably the leading professor of Palestinian history in the United States. That he would take the time to meet for 45 minutes with students in the school blew me away. I went to it because I wanted to see how he did it. I've only seen him speak to adults and to university students before. It was extraordinary. So I encourage you to continue to have the strength to push back when people are afraid of things that are different or things that may contradict their own understandings of what is real and what is right. And allow an engagement in discussion and debate that will serve our students to be able to be good thinkers, to be able to be constructive thinkers on issues like this that are so challenging for all of us to deal with. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Mr. David Gilbert.
Everybody probably, please know, I really shortened my remarks based on what's already been said. I'm David Gilbert. My family's been in Oak Park for 24 years. Our sons graduated from the school. And we are all Jewish, and we are here to support MENA and to urge you not to be used or exploited by anyone who might take advantage of anyone's admirable concerns about anti-Semitism. Don't take a side in a conflict that involves multiple religious traditions by deciding which one is the good guy who should own that land. Don't get lured into mandating that some students hide their pain and their empathy so that other students never have to feel either of these. As a quick aside, our entire family is so proud of, although we don't know them personally, the kids in MENA and what they did. To get a renowned international scholar to speak to a club at a Midwestern high school, just extraordinary, it's heartfelt, and it so reflects well on all of us. One of the ways, I think, in which you could be misled is to get, I think, misdirected about criticism of Israel and criticism of Zionism. While there's much disagreement among Jews about what Zionism is, I think you could safely say, if you're a Jewish, that it's about establishing a homeland in Palestine. What does it mean then to criticize the government of Israel? It's certainly not anti-Zionism any more than criticizing, let's say, our wars in Vietnam or Afghanistan or Iraq is anti-American. It's criticizing the behavior of our government. The same as if we declare that we are anti-racist here, it's not anti-American, not anti-white, it's about certain behavior. I personalize this. I grew up in working class Chicago, not North Shore, Buffalo Grove, working class Chicago, where my dad worked. I'm a senior citizen. I got called everything. Kike, Sheeny, Jew boy, Christ killer. I know anti-Semitism. I can smell the slightest whiff of it. That's not going on here. You can be confident. Criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. Thanks.
The next speaker, Ms. Lisa, is it Lapine or Lapine? Lapine. Good evening. My name is Louisa Lapine. My husband and I are 24-year residents of Oak Park, and both of our grown sons are proud graduates of OPRF. In addition to my day job as a clinical psychologist, I'm also the co-founder and community leader of the secular Jewish community and school of Oak Park for the last 20 years. One of the things that I value most about our life in Oak Park and our sons' experiences at OPRF is the commitment to diversity, openness, honesty, critical thinking, and the ability to question. These values are aligned with my own values as a secular Jew. I count on this board and faculty to protect and nurture curiosity, advocacy, inquiry, and frankly, the kind of initiative shown by our students that brought Professor Khalid to the community. As a Jew, as you heard from many of us, I'm acutely sensitive to anti-Semitism. Hatred of Jews for being Jewish is anti-Semitism. Just like hatred of Muslims for being Muslim is Islamophobia. And hatred of African Americans for being African American is racism, pure and simple. Being critical of Israel and its policies and behavior is not anti-Semitism. Being empathic, critical thinkers and educated social justice warriors is what I think embodies the zeitgeist of Oak Park and what we want to teach our children. When our kids behave in an unkind or abusive way, we need to teach them to behave better. But when our kids ask questions and share feelings and express a point of view and experiences that others may not fully understand, it is our duty to help them be and feel seen, understood, and supported, period. I encourage you, dear board, to teach our kids the importance of constructive and safe debate and conversation. Adapting and enforcing a distorted definition of anti-Semitism ultimately hurts all of our children and our community. I believe we have the capacity and responsibility to do better and model better for our kids. Thank you.
Mr. Kosky, that concludes our in-person public comments. We have 9 via Zoom and no other rooms to be read into the minutes.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Our next order of business is approval of the minutes, so I move to approve the December 7th, 2023 committee of the whole minutes as presented. Are there any corrections, adjustments, or changes that need to be made? Okay. Yes, a second, thank you. And a voice vote, so all in favor? Aye. Excellent, thank you. All right, we now go to our finance agenda. We're gonna do a little bit of a reshuffle just so that people are aware of it. According to Dr. Johnson, the alphabet has been reshaped and it goes alpha, beta, gamma. So G has been moved up after B.
That's right, we'll adjust our curriculum accordingly
Okay,
next semester.
so we will be moving the Verigy geothermal proposal to be after the joint agreement between after B. So with that said, we're going to handle A, correct?
Yep. Ready?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to turn it over here to Mr. Arbogast. This is an annual item for our board for the approval of our Northern Illinois Independent Purchasing Cooperative for our food service. And this item is in alignment with strategic plan priority 4 and district policy 460. We also have, in addition to, of course, Mr. Arbogast, who's here in front of us online. Joining us via Zoom is Mike Pekarsky, our director of food service. So, Tony, I turn it over to you, Mike.
Okay, great. I will just do a quick introduction to Mike and let her drive this one. But what we're doing here is ultimately looking for approval at the next board meeting of the NIIPC RFPs and rollovers to the companies that are listed in the board packet.
Is there any questions?
Great presentation, Mike, well done. Yes.
Jeez, some samples. This is full slices, right?
Really, I appreciate the land lakes, and you know, that is like the best butter for baking. So it was happy to see that on here.
Okay.
So
I don't see any questions, so we will await that in 2 weeks and move to item B.
All right, thank you, Mike. The next item on our agenda is the joint agreement between OPR Food Services and the Northern Illinois Independent Purchasing Cooperative for the same. So again, turn it over to Tony and Mike. This is also in line with the priority 4 and district policy 460.
Yep, and again, I'll do just a quick summary of what we're looking for at the next board meeting here and turn it over to Mike. But I would be remiss if I did not mention and thank Mike for the work on these 2 items, as she will be retiring at year's end. She has put in a tremendous amount of work to both our district and to the cooperative itself. And just want to take a second and recognize her for all of her hard work, and she will be very missed. And she has this very under control. So what we'd be looking for is at the next board meeting to recommend that the district approve the NIIPC restated articles of joint agreement and bylaws that are attached, and that will be forward at the January 25th meeting.
Questions? I just wanted to clarify two questions, if I may. One is, the total annual dollar spend that is associated with this co-op. I think an answer was $1.1 million, but I'm just want to validate that.
Yeah, those are all our food and paper products, and that it comes from, we have 5 bids. So that's our grocery bid, our dairy bid, our bread bid, our beverage bid, and our produce bid. So it's almost everything I buy that we go to bid on.
That's covered under this joint agreement?
Yes, it's a cooperative. They're all cooperative bids. We feel we get our best pricing when we, the more purchasing power we have, the better pricing we get. And those are all the main distributor bid everybody belongs to. All the other bids are optional, and we are in all those optional bids.
So the dollar that's I'm just trying to understand, because the way this agreement works is there a board's going to be formed that's going to govern this, correct?
But because now that I'm retiring, they decided they wanted to take the approving of bids out of a school board's hands. So we're still going to be with an administrative district. It won't be Oak Park. It'll be another district because of finances. So they'll still have an administrative district. But what they want to do is that we can have our own board as a co-op to do all the voting and approval of bids.
The own co-op board, yeah. So I'm very pleased to see that this school district has been kind of approving dollars for all these other districts, and this kind of, in my mind, brings it to the right regulatory, right governance. So I'm very pleased to see this. I'm just trying to fully understand it. The other question I have is, in looking at the document, and it's kind of comes to other questions of what the scope of it is that this co-op has authority over.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The main thing is that they have authority over going to bid out food or purchasing, or being food items, paper products, small equipment, that they have authority to do that for anybody that belongs to the co-op.
I did not, and my question is, the members are all members that have food service programs, but
Correct.
I did not see anything that kind of defined what the scope is of what the procurement realm is. And I don't know if it's needed, but to me, it makes me think about things of where else you could have shared purchasing, right? So can you help me understand where this agreement says this is for food?
Well, but in the long run, it might not be just for food. Right now, it's food, it's beverages, it's paper products, it's small equipment, but it's left open in case, let's just say we do decide we want to bid something else and would be optional on what districts we want to join to be in that part of that bid. But that's where it is under that purpose, Tom, is where it is under the agreement.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the district is a member of several different purchasing cooperatives. So if there was an item brought forward by this cooperative that we decided would not be in the best interest of our district to purchase, we wouldn't be obligated to do so. It just allows us to have more purchasing power for the items that are out there. So really, in essence, the more items that eventually could be added to this cooperative, the better for us, because it just gives us more options. Very similar to where a Sourcewell goes out and bids out a variety of products, and we are a member of that purchasing cooperative. It's just a way to leverage competitive purchasing for our district.
And the agreement was written by Mertz, Howard Mertz's company, and approved by the State Board of Ed also, Tom, so you know.
Those were my questions. Any other questions? Seeing none, I think we're good. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Now we go to Gamma. G.
Okay, next up is the second installment of a conversation with the board with Verigy for our proposed geothermal project to provide the bulk of the heating and cooling needs for project 2. And so Verigy, your team, please feel free to come forward. This is an item that is in alignment, of course, with the strategic plan priority 4 and the newly approved by the board goal F1C, and district policies 460 and 470. So with that said, Tony, am I turning it over to you first or right to the team?
I can do a brief introduction. Tonight we are going to really, this will be brought in two kind of a two-step approach. We're going to talk about or previously we had spoken of the need to do the test well and make sure that our land was sufficient to build a geothermal field, and then what type of output we would get from that land. Now that those results are in, and we know that we have a viable solution, that solution will be presented tonight, and our team from is here to talk through both the solution and then answer any questions that may come from it. And then the steps that would follow, if the board chooses to move forward with this, would be that we would ultimately determine, you'll see a reference to 2 different options we have. One would be to hit the minimum amounts needed for the project 2 area in terms of tonnage. The second would be to maximize all of the tonnage we can get out of an area so that we don't have to go back into it. Once that would kind of be the second step of the decision, are we going to do this, and then to what level? And then the third that we would get to would be how do we fund it, and then we would start negotiating the contract. So with that, I will turn it over to Verity to walk us through. And just so members of the team that haven't been here before, if you'd like to speak, you just have to push the button right there.
Good evening. It's nice to see everybody. Happy New Year. So my name is Michelle James again. It's nice to see everybody. We also have Gordon Schweitzer with us as well. Rory Stegman is one of our geothermal engineers and Gil Buccio as well. And we also have Steve Olson, who is our project manager with us as well. So some of the slides that we have tonight are a little bit of an overview from last time that we were here. But again, as Tony mentioned, we're really going to focus on what we've been doing since our last meeting in terms of finalizing the design and looking at the results of the conductivity test and how it applies. So this first slide here is really just an overview of the goals that were presented to the Verity team through the RP process. Again, we were looked at to design and implement the geothermal well field as part of project 2, as well as identifying any additional funding sources that could be put towards the project, and then also provide long-term assistance with the sustainability plan, but ultimately looking at improving the learning environment for students and staff. So as part of project 2, the requirements in terms of the capacity were 515 tons for heating, cooling, and plumbing requirements. And so since receiving the conductivity testing result, we were really investigating various areas throughout the property to see where the best location would be for the well field. So we were primarily starting with the mall area, which would include quite a few different areas to see if we could hit that target of 515 tons. However, we were not able to do that. The maximum tonnage that we were expecting to see with that conductivity testing result was around 312 tons, which also comes with some challenges in terms of some variances that we were going to need to get because of the locations of utilities and things like that. So really that put us focusing more on the football field location. So with the football field location and our conductivity testing results, we're able to hit that target of 515 tons and actually beyond that to maximize that. So the conductivity testing resulted in about 2.5 tons per well. And so that pushed us at about 606 tons that we can get out of the football field, which ultimately would be the recommendation that we go here. And so again, we can size it either just to hit that target, or we can maximize it so that you don't have to go back into that field for a future phase. So this next slide here really just provides a little bit more detail because we're looking at the football field. Our design really is going to result in about 240 wells. And again, with that 2.5 tons per well, it gives us a 606 tons. Also, we're going to be looking at 20 foot in terms of the spacing for those wells. And that's for a couple different reasons that we've outlined here, is to prevent leaks in the system and also capacity loss. We've actually been involved in quite a few previously designed and implemented geothermal projects that had wells too close together and had issues. So that's something that we've got to be very careful on and why we're sizing it that way. So with that range, we're looking at the range that you're looking at here, which is the $7.9 to $10.3 million is a budget range that we have right now. Now, again, with the conductivity testing results that we did get back, we're hopeful that we're going to be on the low end of that range. But we just got to be careful and want to be conservative. So in terms of the life cycle analysis that we put together, we want to go into detail here in the next few slides. We really looked at the target, which was the 515 tons. And so that's the $9.5 million that you'll see that Gordon's been kind of walking through here. But again, if you maximize it on the high end. Again, this really just kind of shows you that preliminary design with, again, the 240 wells, 20 feet apart, 606 tons. We're looking at 500 feet deep right now. That's something that in the final design, depending on where the district would like to go, that we have the options of, if you're sticking with the 515 tons, we could keep the depth at 500 feet, which would have less bores, or we could actually reduce the depth and keep the bores the same. So it's something that we would finalize and look to see what's going to be the best in terms of pricing.
this is a slide that we presented last time. It really just kind of outlines typically what the advantages of a geothermal system overall would be to the district. Again, this is a lot of the advantages, but as we discussed last time, really it's site specific and we need to do a life cycle analysis to really factor in all of the costs to determine what is going to be the best moving forward for the district. So this next slide really just, again, it outlines the components that we include in our life cycle analysis. So we typically look at a 30-year period of time when we're comparing conventional or traditional HVAC systems to a geothermal system. And so we're going to include your first cost, any grants and incentives that might apply, repair or maintenance cost, replacement cost, and of course the energy cost to see really what that looks like over a 30-year period of time, annualized. So we use a couple different things. We use the Whitestone Research, which is a national cost guide when we're looking at some of the repair, maintenance, and maintenance costs associated with the life cycle analysis. We've also utilized budgets directly from the construction team as well on the two different options. So in looking at both the geothermal system and the conventional or traditional HVAC system, we wanted to kind of show you what the differences are going to be. So in the geothermal, of course, you've got your well field and you've got water source heat pump units or terminal units. And then you've got the geothermal piping loop and pumps, and then heat exchanger as well. So when we're looking at the option for a conventional HVAC system, the alternate would be actually instead of your well field, you would be then looking at adding hot water boilers. 3 of them, you would add 2 air-cooled chillers that would be on the roof. And then you would also add some domestic water boilers. The hot water boilers would be located in the mechanical room in place of the heat pumps, but the air-cooled chillers would be on the roof. And so there would be some structural that would be needed as part of that alternate as well. And then of course, some modifications to the piping unit as well. So I just wanted to kind of show you what the differences would be that we're looking at when we go to the life cycle process. So this is the first section, and I'm going to actually hand it over to Gordon, and he's going to kind of walk you through. There's 3 slides here that you'll see that outline what's included in the life cycle analysis, and then Gordon's going to kind of explain how we came up with the comparison. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. And so it may be a little small on the screen. I know we have the full 1-pager in the board packet. Some of the feedback we received last board meeting was look at that full life cycle cost, the install costs of project 2, what's currently budgeted, look at an energy model of the different mechanical systems and look at that 30-year snapshot. So that's what we try to do. And I may turn on the mic for Rory or Lee, geothermal engineer who's done geothermal systems across the country, and Gil, who's right here in Chicago, and can help explain some of this details too. We do these on a lot of projects. So this is very kind of a tool we've developed over time that just provides that response to a common question we get. So in the first 3 columns, that's the traditional non-geothermal system, and the green column, that's the geothermal system. So right now in project 2, you're kind of right in the middle. You're using water source systems. You don't have the boilers and chillers. We don't have the well field right now. So those costs kind of going in either direction. So what's currently in the project 2 budget is that 11.5 million. So that's not added costs. That's currently in the project 2 budget per information we received from Gil Bain, the construction manager, end of December. To Michelle's point, we're looking at adding a lot of mechanical equipment, boilers and chillers. The chillers would be on top of the roof. So there may be some structural components with 2 large chillers that serve the entirety of project 2. We would consider structural improvements, and then part of what we want to consider is the full picture. So we want to look at in the option A approach, you wouldn't necessarily need to do any work in the turf field. So we're kind of fast forwarding that by doing the well field as part of this geothermal project. So we're incorporating the cost of doing that turf field a few years down the road. That's what that shows. So 4 years down the road, an escalation of approximately 4% per year. So that conversion cost going to that system would be about $4.2 million. The total present worth of about $15.7 billion. So we're using that same mechanical price on option B geothermal project. And the conversion budget is all those costs that we're talking about, with the cost of the well field system, all the pumps, the piping, the monitoring system that we tie into the mechanical system. The turf budget in a nearer term, so it wouldn't be 4 years out, maybe 2026. We're looking at doing a little more drainage work since we're drilling vertical wells in the turf field. We're also looking at the benefit of the Inflation Reduction Act. That would apply to the water source heat pump system that you have, and also the well field system. So that would, the net standpoint, the net cost of those costs and minus the savings would be about $3.5 million. So that first part of the life cycle analysis, the upfront cost, present worth of the option A is about 15.7, option B is about $15 million.
Can I add one thing?
Please.
So one question that may have popped into some minds are if that 11.5 million is already part of project 2, why are we even showing it here and including that? And that is because one of the added benefits of going with this geothermal system is it opens up that 11.5 million to now being applicable to the Inflation Reduction Act rebates. So we'd be able to get a 35% rebate on the mechanical system, because to the federal government, they don't really care who installs it, or if Verigy's doing the well field and Gilbane is overseeing the mechanicals in the building. It's all part of the same system that way, so it opens up our rebate to a much higher amount.
That's a great point. Thank you, Tom. All right, so that's the
Can I ask a question right there just on
Please.
that, or? So that 11 million is whether we started from scratch and did traditional or geothermal, it's the same. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're not impacting the design within the building at all. To go to a non-geothermal system, we're projecting costs of adding boilers and chillers. But that 11.5 is kind of the mechanical budget, maybe at the 90% set or an earlier projection. I don't know if that answers your question, Tom.
No. I'm still cloudy. I'm just trying to understand that, is that it, and I know it's kind of just rewinding, but if we, because we kind of, if someone said we're kind of stuck in the middle between geothermal and this, but if we were doing a traditional system, right? Would the cost, would we have started and done it differently so that we, is that full 11 million still valid for the traditional system if we were starting and knowing we were going that way? Maybe it's not for you guys, it's maybe for Gilbane or Tony. Yeah, right. There's not enough people to say, and we for Gilbane. You understand my question? That's always the hard part, right?
Allison, I think, spoke to this as well during our last meetings.
So the 11.5 million that he speaks of currently is the mechanical budget for all of the equipment, piping, components of the mechanical system within project 2. That includes the heat pumps, all of the geothermal equipment necessary to make an operational system. We have the pieces of equipment that we need to change. There are structural revisions that would come along with that. We have not done a full analysis on what the cost difference between, Gilbane has not done a full analysis on what the cost difference between a traditional mechanical system for this building versus what's currently designed as geothermal. I don't know if that helps, but that's where we're at today. It changes all the piping, it changes the equipment without having a design, or at least a preliminary design. It's very hard for us to put together an estimate on that.
So I think I understand what you're saying. Let me try to restate it. You have about $11 million worth of HVAC system in project 2. That cost exists whether it is fed by traditional mechanical heating equipment, or it's fed by a geothermal. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you look at this slide right now, and you look at the geothermal HVAC system components, basically your project 2 mechanical budget includes everything except for the well field, right? Okay. And so if you move to a conventional system, the way that we showing the life cycle right now is instead of that well field, now you actually have to add in hot water boilers, air cooled chillers, domestic water boilers. And so we've actually shown you the difference there in those two. That's what that conversion number is.
Right, so if we stay with a conventional system, it's the HVAC system. Plus the conventional boilers to total about 15 million of CapEx.
Correct.
By heat input.
That's what we budgeted, yeah. So we
Right.
basically took, Gilbane provided us with your current geothermal HVAC budget, that 11.5 million. And to his point, what we had to do is if you go to a conventional system, we had to back out the heat pumps, we had to back out the, geothermal pumps. A lot of those items we had to back out of that number. And then we actually had to add in the cost of the hot water boilers, chillers.
Yeah, okay, I
So
get
that's the
that.
difference.
I get that. So we go conventional, it's about 15.7 million. If you go geothermal, you still have that 11 million because that's the HVAC distribution system within the P2 building.
Correct.
You then have the equipment to do the geothermal field. But the reason that 11 million is relevant is because that is CapEx you marry with the geothermal CapEx, and that total CapEx spend is subject to the benefits under the IRA.
Absolutely, correct.
So that's why the 11.5 million is in there.
Right, if there was no rebates.
It would cost more.
It's costing $7,394,000 more.
Correct.
Correct.
In my opinion, that's why you'll see, if the board chooses to move forward with this, I think it's a testament to our commitment to sustainability in the district. There are very few school districts that are powered by geothermal north of I-80. And for a long time, that is really because there haven't been the rebates and incentives for geothermal. This is one of the first major pieces of legislation that is providing that type of funding for this type of a project, and makes it now an achievable, more realistic possibility for the district, as comparing, say, a $22 million and change project versus a $15 million project.
And this isn't the 515 tonnage, correct?
Yes, the life cycle analysis that we put together assumes 515 tons because we wanted to
Roughly
compare
a
apples to
little
apples.
less than $1 million if we wanted to go to full capacity.
Right.
606.
And one thing we are working on, this is a living document, so once numbers get updated by Gilbane, we had new numbers. We updated the design with our conductivity test, and it's like 12% better than our original projections. As far as a couple weeks ago, kind of after Thanksgiving, when Steve was here doing the test well, so we're optimistic in the range that we presented tonight. There's a bunch of other factors, a lot of high demand on geothermal systems right now. But we're optimistic within the realm of possibilities on the lower end of that.
We went up to the full tonnage, looking at the differences, it's about 10.3 million, went to the full 606 tonnage, so it'd be about, about equal cost between traditional system and doing the geothermal at the maximum tonnage.
Yeah, we're pulling up to about 15.8.
Yeah, so because they'd be about.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Yep.
But again, the nice thing about the IRA rebate is we would get approximately $250,000 of that rebated back upon completion of the project as well. Yeah.
Can I just note, because I had to look this up, I was confused by, we say IRA rebate, Inflation Reduction Act, and I was like, what does this have to do with energy costs? So just for the record, like the Inflation Reduction Act is trying to curb inflation through various mechanisms, and one of them is investing into domestic energy production while promoting clean energy. So that was just, I was really confused, and so it helped me to understand why it was called inflation reduction. Right. That's just putting it for any taxpayers watching this.
Yeah. Good point. That's the first page. Wait, go.
Right, so if we're still on this, so I appreciate that you did this because this was exactly what I was looking for, because if I'm understanding correctly, you factored in both the CapEx and the OpEx. And over a 30-year period, the district could be expected to save $350,000 annually by going with this geothermal system. Have I understood this correctly?
Correct.
But what's like super ball game here is the IRA incentives. So are there any risks we should know about with regard to timing or availability of those incentives?
So, yes, I think that, we may have talked about it a little bit in the last board meeting, but, essentially the way that the law is written right now is it verbatim, it actually, they extended it 2 years to include geothermal, systems, right? Through the end of 24. So they rewrote the law, and it doesn't explicitly say geothermal systems in law. But everybody believes that that is going to be interpreted again as it is included in the IRA tax incentive, but it hasn't been formalized, I should say. So I think what NIESCO, which they're the National Association of Energy Service companies, and a lot of different folks that we deal with believe that it will be extended. It's no guarantee. And we also believe that if you start a project in 24, then you will be grandfathered in the following year. So because they've done that in the past on previous situations like this.
Right. So who do we need to be in touch with and close to constantly to monitor that?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we can get you some suggestions of.
Yeah, we have a team of folks who are tracking the Inflation Reduction Act on a pretty daily basis, and whether it's Bergy or tax professionals, there's a lot of people out there who are looking at just interpreting it. It is open, it just opened for projects that are energized last year. And we have a number of applications that are getting ready to get essentially their tax reimbursement submission.
Last question is, we're to do this under the football field, we're gonna have to replace the turf there, 4 years ahead of schedule. What's the typical lifespan of a turf field like that?
Generally speaking, the turf warranties are about 10 years, and you want to do your replacement when your warranty runs out. So that's where that 4 years comes from, is we would have 4 years remaining on our warranty to replace the turf. So we'd be moving this project up about 4 years.
So it's a circa 2018 turf field.
Yes.
Yeah, summer of 18 and stuff.
Thank you. That's it.
That was actually my only question, because it matters. You said 3 years early or 4 years early. It matters, is that out of 10 years or 30 years, or right? So
Yes.
the process.
Okay, so on the next two slides, page 10 and page 11, just the different sections of the life cycle cost analysis. Didn't know if there were any specific questions. This page 10 really is pulled from the Whitestone reference guide, which talks about just repair and replacement cost over a 30-year period. So we just pulled numbers straight from there. And on page 11.
So I'm to understand, just so I understand, that on page 10, look at the bottom line, over the period of the 30-year life cycle, there would be about a $4 million savings over the traditional system.
Correct. So this is
that's how I understand the number.
That is correct. So the first row A there, the Fulton boilers, those are the 3 boilers that you'd have to add back in to provide heating for the space. So per Whitestone, those have major repairs at 7 years, 14 years, at 21 years, and a 30-year replacement. So we factored in those costs for the size and amount of hours and the local labor costs. And then we factored in replacing those boilers. Same thing for the domestic boilers, those Lockton bars, and replacing those 2 air-cooled chillers that we on. So those would be pretty substantial replacements. We may need to get a crane or a helicopter involved to put them on top of the building when those do eventually need replacement. Besides energy, a major advantage is geothermal. It's more or less outside of the mine, static. It's just more or less a big battery under the football field and provides heating and cooling. So it provides those services that these mechanical items would provide. And the last page.
Can you, on that one, may I ask?
Please.
So the utility cost is your difference in consumption? Middle of that?
How many on the page? 11?
Oh, maybe I'm not.
Well, it's okay. All the pages look pretty similar.
Am I ahead of it?
Yeah, you're on page 11.
As usual. Quick question.
All right. They're all blue, green, and
Yeah.
white pages with a bunch of small numbers on them, okay? So,
It's good forward thinking.
all right, I'll
Keep
shut
it
up
moving.
for 30 seconds.
That's very good question. So you have annual maintenance. So we look at the annual maintenance of the boilers, the chillers, the geothermal heat pumps. And then we also factor in yearly boiler inspections. Since they're a natural gas vessel, you have to have just combustion tests, make sure that they're safe. And then we ran an energy model of project 2 based on local condition, size, usage space. And that's how we came up with the projection of 161,000 versus $135,000 per year. So we use last year's utility rates. We understand those rates may be changing, so this is another reason we could keep the document up to date with any new rates that you may be signing up for. But that is based on the last 12 months of data that we had. And so what this shows is that the annual just maintenance upkeep cost on an annual basis is at 637 versus 145,000. Again, you don't have any really moving parts with the well field outside in the well field. And on the utility standpoint, you're saving about 161,000 versus 135,000. And over 30 years, that's a difference of about $1.2 million. So kind of everything all put into a big pot with the installation cost, 30 years of maintenance costs and replacement as needed, and then utility costs. It's about 26 million versus 20 million. So that the annualized cost to an earlier question is 1.5 million versus 1.1 million. And even on if we were able to get the project on the low end of our range without the Inflation Reduction Act, it's pretty close to a wash. That's something we're working for. Right.
Now I get a question on the page that I was jumping over. Is this this is all the maintenance differential, annual maintenance? So is this parts and labor or parts or what's the scope of it?
On the this annual cost, this is like your preventive maintenance and things like that. Your filter changes, your cleaning and things like that. The previous sheet, those are your typical minor / major repairs where and the time that you'd be spending and the resources to repair those systems. But this is more of an annual.
But parts and labor, correct?
Yes.
It's parts and labor.
Yes. Everything's
Correct.
parts and labor.
Okay. That's okay. And then the question you kind of, because you jumped to the next page when you talked about utilities, so I can go there. So you show the differential in dollars from 100, which you know, 165 to $135,000. Correct?
Correct.
And that's for what and what are the assumptions?
Good question. So that's for project 2, and that's a traditional HVAC system versus a geothermal system. So that's not the entire building, but that's just for the area within project 2. And Rory actually did the energy model if you want to speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah, this is based off of system type differential. So we take we construct a building very much like yours. Put it here, where you're physically located, and take the weather data from here. And then account for just the different type systems. A geothermal system versus a 4 pipe, hot chilled water system or any type. It's a very quick, easy comparison. And it easily shows the scale of the savings, and you can put a pretty good dollar number and figure your EUI easily that way.
But I mean, I'm thinking of it differently, so because the traditional system, we would be using natural gas
Correct.
to heat, right?
Correct.
And in the geothermal system, we will not, correct?
Correct. It's
So-
all
so-
electric.
It's all electric, so do we have data? I mean, it's just what it does to our greenhouse gas emissions, right?
I think I understand the question you're asking. There was a link in some of the questions that were answered called energy output models.
Okay.
And those show 172% reduction in natural gas usage and an 8% reduction in electricity usage. Our total energy would go from just over 8.5 million kBTU to just over 6 million. So we'd see almost a 2.5 million kBTU reduction. So total energy output would be about a 41% reduction.
Okay, I'll look for that because that's a lot of numbers. And then the other question is just on that, because you're talking about changes in utilities and then what your assumptions are for future costs of those utilities for natural gas, and that's always the big mystery, but what?
Yeah, I believe that we included a 4%, correct? 4% escalation per year.
Okay, thank you.
At the end of the presentation.
Yeah, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, that ended actually just an overview of the life cycle analysis, and then really just the last slide we have here just kind of walks you through where we are in the process. I think once we get some direction, if this is something that the district wants to move forward with, then we would finalize the design, potentially in that football field location, whether we want to stick with the current load that is matching project 2, or whether you want to maximize it, the football field. And so there's some things that we got to finalize in terms of location of our valves and piping and things like that. And then we anticipate getting final numbers to bring back to the board and potentially table.
So I have another question on the numbers, I like numbers. So is it, that this shows a $5 million life cycle? I gotta get the right page. I keep moving. Nope. Okay. $5.6 million life cycle, 30-year cost differential, correct?
Right.
So I'm always looking, if we looked at it a different way, because we're talking about, this is contingent upon us getting $7.3 million of help from our government, right? So based on the way this model works, I mean, there's a lot of assumptions, but if you just whack that $6 million off the 7.3 million, does this say that we need $1.4 million in help, and this project is a wash?
Right.
$1.4 million. That's our break point. Anything more than that, it's good. Anything less than that, it'll cost us more, but it is still a geothermal project.
And that's at the current budget number that we have included in the life cycle. So if we bid this out and we come in on the low end, you might not need it.
Okay, but I mean, yeah, that's a break even.
So just to clarify, we have some one-on-one conversations that are going to occur. But all we're being asked to do tonight is to commence negotiations and allow you to proceed with more detailed iteration, put it out to bid and so forth. Is that right? And then presumably there will be an actual final contract that comes back for approval, is that correct?
The final cost in March is what I heard you say.
Yeah,
Right.
why don't we go to that next slide so we can take a look at that timeline and use that as a backdrop for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, if we get direction from the board that this is, you know, how you want to proceed, then we will finalize our design and put it out to bid so that we can then bring back the final cost and contract to the board. It would, the way that we have it in our timeline is it would come back in March for approval. So we would have it ready for your first committee of the whole meeting.
I want to add just a little bit of clarity. Tony, help me with this if I get clumsy in my language here, please. But before that, right, in order for project 2 to go out to bid the way we anticipate going out to bid and not needing to go out to bid for a traditional natural gas, we're looking for 2 weeks from tonight, just a formal direction from the board saying, yes, this is exactly where we're going to go. You can go ahead and march and do your thing, but we need that affirmation 2 weeks from now so that our bidding process can move forward without the additional hindrance of pulling out from a geothermal system.
Yes, the only thing I would add is the one piece of direction we would be looking for would be if the board would prefer us to hit just the needed tonnage at the lower cost for project 2, or to maximize the space of the field for future tonnage, future projects in the building. It would be my recommendation that there would be a lot of headaches that would come with taking turf off and going back in future work to add wells. That you know, with the goal not being to just electrify project 2, but eventually our entire building, to take advantage of this, while we have all of the turf being stripped off, maximize the entire field, then re-turf, and then we don't have to reopen. Whereas if we put new turf down, you know, we'd be in a similar boat where do we want to then open it early down the road? So that's kind of a direction we'd be looking for as well.
Okay, so getting that extra maxed out capacity, I think was an $800,000 of additional CapEx, is that right?
Yeah, right now in the budget, yes.
It is, to have that additional capacity present, does that change your operating costs at all?
It does change what's listed in the life cycle.
Sure, but I mean,
Right.
like the cost to operate, this gentleman very confidently shaking his head behind Tony.
You still use, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean,
Steve.
you still gonna use the same amount of electricity, the pump's still gonna run the same. You just have that, it's like thinking about a battery. You have 1,000 amps out there, you need 700 to crank your car. You still got 300 extra that you can tap into to start something bigger. That's the easiest analogy.
All right.
I didn't mean to see the other term.
Imagine that all we approve everything here. When would you start construction? And my obvious question is, can you get this done before the football season so they got something to play on?
Have you been in our conversations?
No, because
we're there.
What the heck of it is, we have this beautiful new football field
Sure
in the
do.
middle of the track. So is it, you got a contingency there.
We
a little bit.
that would be part of the next discussions in building the calendar out. We've already talked about completing the work between seasons, but that will take some look and a lot of internal planning with our athletic director and Ms. Parker to talk through when does the season end, when can we start tearing things apart, making sure that students still have access in a safe manner to other parts of the stadium itself while this is going on, and then ready to go by the start of the next school year.
Yeah, and let me be just complicate that a little bit in a way that isn't going to provide answers to some of that complication right now. So not only is all of that relevant, but what happens in the fall, depending on exactly when we start. But there are implications for taking essentially the football stadium field offline, right? In the winter, maybe not so much, but for the spring, a year from now, as we move into the spring semester of 25, it will have significant impact on our programming. And I don't want anybody to have any illusions that that is going to be incredibly easy for us to absorb when we're already dealing with the stresses of Project 2 and displacing students in a variety of ways. Yes, a difference from internal spaces, from external spaces to a large extent, but it still is gonna be a stressor. It also has implications for our partner organizations. I've had just very preliminary conversations with Jan Arnold, the park district, who's been a really good partner, as you all know with us, to enable the track and field project to move forward as we go forward. But that, there's a sharing of fields in a variety of ways with the park district, and that's going to be affected by this in some way. We're committed to continue to be collaborative with the park district, of course, as we move down that road. But this is not a decision that is only going to affect us here in this building for the 2 years or for the year under which this is under construction. So.
What he said is piece of cake, let's do it.
That's what you heard, right?
Yeah, we got a couple of months, so I.
No. He's doing something, that better be strong. Let me ask, so following the question, so 515 versus 600, that discussion. So if you build it, if you max out the field, you have that extra capacity. We don't have any use for that capacity. I'm taking it.
It's right now in project 2, we would not, but really the next step would be then, how do we then start to take that tonnage and move it to areas in the building beyond project 2? And where could additional heat pumps or what changes might be needed in a mechanical system? So future projects could lead to taking advantage of the available tonnage.
Okay, and then kind of extrapolating that, if the football field's worth 600 tons, does that mean that other fields that we have are worth, does that mean is it that proximate? Do we think that with the field across the street or others that we have geothermal potential at the right time for other ends of this project?
One project at a time, please, Tom. One project at a time. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, all I was gonna say was that the connectivity will match those other fields. So we can apply the same 2.5 tons per well to those other fields to figure out what that kind of in the other areas.
We're in a good place. I always knew this place was kind of big connectivity. Bob, will you write an article about the connectivity of, here's the people you can talk to, okay?
I have a question. In terms of the, where's the number? The 7,394,670 from the Federal Inflation Reduction Act. All right. What's the timing of applying for receiving whether it's approval and then the actual funds? Because obviously, if we approve this, we're gonna have to commit to the almost $4 million, or the $7.4 million up front. So it's gonna have to be paid for, and then we get the rebates after I assume after it's completed, we prove we've done it and it's applied for and everything. So how long is that process?
Sure. Well, if you want to start about the Inflation Reduction Act, and then I can talk about kind of the upfront money as well.
Yeah.
Sure. So historically, how it works is once the entire geothermal project is energized, then let's say talk about it right now, because we don't have the timeline yet of the project implementation. Let's say in the end of 2025, I believe, or 2026, the entire project is energized, right? So then essentially the very next year, you would submit a tax form, and then you would get paid within, I think it's 4 months, but I'm right.
We would suggest submitting in January, February, and it's typical tax return timelines.
It's typically 4 months. So it's the very next year after the year it is energized, you would submit a tax form. You could send it like that.
Very likely we would be done with the geothermal portion and the new field prior to project 2 interior being completed.
Right,
one of the things that we're hoping to research, this is a little bit of a unique project, is can we submit earlier? Maybe turn the system on, run
the well field portion.
Well field portion through, but that's something we'll work through. But safer to say that it'll be on the timeline that Michelle outlined.
And another thing that's still being investigated that I don't have an answer for tonight is when we talk about kind of the ability to say that yes, the project's complete from an IRA standpoint, and it is energized. There will be power and energy into that building through the mechanical system before, you know, the opening of the doors for project 2 being complete. So at what point are we able to say the energy is on, we can submit the rebate? We're investigating that. We are also doing from the finance department modeling of you know, if we paid everything up front, our early indications are that we do not fall below the district fund balance policy. We're still putting that through, making sure that we don't cause ourselves any cash flow issues as well. But we will have all that information available very shortly.
Other questions? Graham?
Maybe just one follow-up, you know, our district's accountant, I should know who that is.
Brian, I'm.
You know, you could have a second set of eyes investigating their opinion of the likelihood of this IRA tax incentive and our eligibility concurrent with what they're doing. The nature of the IRA is that it was passed in August of 2022, and they're still sorting out exactly how all the incentives are going to work. You may recall $7,500 tax credit if you bought an electric car, but there was domestic content requirements to that. And that's still being figured out because there aren't a lot of domestic energy transition for minerals processing. So maybe a second set of eyes concurrently looking at that would be helpful.
Yes, and I will say one encouraging piece to me is similar to companies like Verigy. I forget the acronym of the NIASCO, that advises them on energy policy moving forward, similar to business officials of schools have the Illinois Association of School Business Officials. Through our RFP process, all companies were mentioning the availability of the IRA rebate. So this is not something that we are distrusting of, but something that, you know, needs more research. But every indication from a number of well-respected sources are this should be very possible.
Another question, you said early on in your presentation that very few school districts north of I-80 have implemented a zero fuel project. I'm just curious as to why in your opinion that hasn't happened.
Well, in my opinion, and this is strictly speaking, it's just a couple factors. There has not been a major rebate available for a geothermal system to offset the cost. So you're talking about financing, and we are in a unique position as a district of being both very landlocked, but having an amount of quality land to do this with. So I think there's districts out there that would love to do something like this, and possibly the finances are not the hurdle, but where to put the system is the hurdle, or they're finding that their land is not conducive to the system itself. Now, that's just my opinion from a few districts I have spoken with. It could be a migrated reason.
Keep that great conductivity. Keep that in mind. Yeah. I have one last question, which is somewhat out in right field. What experience do you have involving students in any of the work that you do as part of a learning experience?
I can actually step this into Michelle. Through the years, different high schools, I've worked a lot of high schools, worked with Curtis at Plainfield, and there have been different programs like your technologies, like your shop and stuff. Young kids that want to get involved in like engineering, they do like intern programs, you know, we got to get together, set it up where they do come out and they will shadow a project manager. And we kind of act as mentors. We set up times to kind of see what we're doing. They kind of see the processes, and we kind of, you know, take a little time and help them to see the whole picture. And it's not always just about geothermal. It could be about the things that Gilbane is doing, because construction is gonna go no matter what. It's always gonna have to build something. You're always gonna have to fix something. So I mean, there are opportunities out there, and that's definitely something that we can look at to possibly involve some of your students. I guess I leave it to people that are higher up in the food chain than I am.
You probably keep off the rigs though.
Yeah, keep them. No rodeo rigs, but I've never had a problem with students shadowing and learning and sitting in our meetings, because they see what goes into project managing, they see what goes in superintendent. It's open.
And just to elaborate on that too, so we actually get involved in workforce development. In fact, I'm working with another district. Riverbend School District recently, we're actually doing a classroom edition there. And we actually are doing an internship program where we're selecting a high school student that's gonna shadow our project manager and be involved on the whole project, and from start to finish. We're actually starting the project in February, and all the way through the summer, they're gonna be shadowing that project. We also incorporate a display you see on the slide here, where we can actually show exactly how the system is working. And our marketing team actually put curriculum together for these types of projects that you can utilize as well. So it's a pretty good program that we put together, whether it's geothermal, whether it's solar, that can be brought into the classroom, and you can actually use this project as a live learning lab.
The sustainability club.
Yeah, no, I mean, because we do have the need and our goal to have our curriculum enhanced. So what you just said is both the internship practicality and that are both in my mind valuable for what we're trying to do. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks for being
Great
so
question.
prepared.
Yes.
Like we asked for a bunch of things and we brought it.
Thank you.
And it's great that we have great conductivity. It's kind of a soundbite here.
So we want to make a transition really quickly. I apologize for jumping. Did you want to move on with the track and field one, or did you want to go with natural gas? I want to clarify you. That's something we
We do have one other consultant with us tonight, so if we want to do keep playing with the alphabet order and do natural gas next, then we can allow Ms. Thompson to head home.
Yes. Go. Yeah, let's keep moving.
All right, then let's go ahead and move on with that. This is item E on the agenda. So we're skipping over D for a moment here. And this is the approval of the RFP and the execution of the natural gas contracts. This is in compliance, as the previous items have been required before, and District Policy 460. And I will now turn it over to Consultant Anton. Go ahead.
Sure. Just to introduce everybody, some of you may recognize Becky Thompson, who comes to us from Narnia. Narnia is an advisor to the district on energy. This process will seem very familiar to some historical actions taken by the district. Our natural gas contract ends in June of 24. So now is the time to start looking at rates and extending our contract, approving a new contract for natural gas. I will let Becky talk through what she has found in the market and the current state of the market. So Ed, if you could put the attachment on item G or item E. And then I'll let her click through and drive it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I will try not to put you to sleep at 9 o'clock at night, boring you with all the details of energy purchasing, but there are some new faces here who maybe haven't seen me before, so I'm going to give you a real quick promise, less than 2 minutes, of what this even means and why it's relevant to your school district. So at your home, you maybe have NICOR or ComEd. They're your electric and gas utilities, right? It sounds familiar. You pay them every month, and you're about to pay them a lot this month with this weather coming. For everyone in the state of Illinois, actually, but specifically for your school district, you have the option to purchase through a third party. So it's a forward-facing contract, purchasing today, what you're using in the future. This allows you to have budget stability, eliminate some of the pricing volatility that exists within the marketplace, and have a little more control over what that pricing is going to be for you versus what you may be familiar with at your home, that it's very reactive kind of marketplace. Probably predict that in the future months coming after this weather, we may have higher gas rates at your home, for example. We want to insulate the school district from that. So that's what I do. I'm an energy consultant for the district, been with you guys for several years, and help you purchase your natural gas and electricity to attain fixed rates for that budget stability and full transparency in the marketplace. So just as a quick kind of status quo where we're at today, your current electric contract still is in effect through December of 2026. This is to help you meet some of your sustainability initiatives that are part of your sustainability goals, is purchased as a 100% green option. So those come with purchase renewable energy certificates that are retired every year on behalf of the school district, so that you can claim that you are 100% powered by green energy. And so nothing to do with this contract for quite some time, but did want to bring this up to date of where this stands. And those rates are secured through a live auction process that was just completed, I believe, November of 2022, with a 4-year term that was accepted at that time. So today we're here to talk about natural gas. So as Tony alluded to, this contract is expiring this summer, and currently you have one of the best rates in the area, so you can give yourself a pat on the back. Under 30 cents a therm may not mean anything to you as we're talking about, but the current market is trading at about 45 to 50 cents. So what that means is that if you had not had this fixed price contract in place for the duration, you would have been subject to the market volatility that existed, which last summer was in the range of about $1.25 a therm. So we here on this slide, that big roller coaster, that big hump that you see there, that was pretty much a direct result of Russia invading Ukraine, you were insulated from. You still paid the under 30 cents a therm that entire time, which equated to a savings of, do you remember the number that I sent to you? 200? So a savings of $213,000 over the term of this contract. So if you're asking the question, why am I here and why is this relevant? That pretty much sums it up in a nutshell. So what we've highlighted on this graph is where the market was the last time we went out to bid and secured a fixed price contract. It was at some of the lowest historical pricing of all time. If we were to blow this graph out an additional 10, 15, 17 years, this was one of the lowest points in history. So the fact that you accepted a long-term contract at that time was outstanding. And you can see the very nauseating roller coaster that we have ridden since that time. So why am I here today? Is the end of that graph, that first big dip, the first nominal or material change that we've seen in the marketplace in the last 18 months has finally presented itself. Despite what we're going to experience this evening, it's actually a result of warmer winter than originally was anticipated. When you think of energy purchasing, it's all really a direct result of supply and demand. Various things affect that supply and demand: geopolitical events, upcoming elections, traders, local production, how much we're exporting to other countries. Anything that is a push and pull of that supply and demand directly correlates with those rates. So with the lower demand anticipated for winter weather and higher production, it's finally looking like a good time to maybe have this discussion. Comparably, I always like to share that even though what we're going to discuss is likely an increase from what your current contract has, remembering that you're coming off of historic lows, we are still paying about a quarter of what our friends over in Europe and Asia are paying. So just a little bit of relativity there for you to kind of keep. So with that, one of the things that we like to do before coming and having this discussion for you, knowing that everyone's time is of the utmost importance, it's just to gauge market and see where things are at. So these are tentative. We did kind of a scoop of the marketplace to get some bids. What you see there in the left-hand column, Constellation, Direct, NG, Symmetry are supplier names. Those are your third-party retail energy suppliers. You still have NICOR natural gas as the utility. They still own the pipelines. They're who you call if there's a gas leak. They are always present and they are responsible for the local delivery of the gas to you. These suppliers are who you contract with specifically for the hedging of the natural gas. They hedge on your behalf and then offer you that fixed rate contract over the term of the contract. So this just kind of highlights to you where the market is trading at currently. Remember, I said your previous rate is about 28 cents. So we are looking at an increase for your forward contract with the market kind of neutralizing where we're at today. So all of that to say that we're here today to really just seek pre-approval for OPRF administration to have the optionality to enter into a natural gas agreement as opportunities arise. If those dips continue, if the pricing is favorable, with that impending contract in that is coming up pretty quickly, this allows Tony to prepare that budget going forward. And for your geothermal projects and some of the other considerations that you have, knowing what that fixed price would be for that natural gas contract going forward. So with that, I know it spoke very quickly. What questions do you have for me or anything that I can clarify for you on the process or specifically natural gas in today's?
And one thing that I just like to add, because I know we have some new board members here who haven't gone through this process before. Really, the reason we go through a process like this and not in a couple action items, we'll be approving some tech equipment is where when we get a quote, say from a tech supplier that says this price is good for 30 or 45 days, when we get quotes on our utilities, they are good for that day. And then that offer would, so that it would not be possible to get an accurate quote and then bring it forward in time for the board to see. So what we will do is set a threshold of a number that we can approve to, and then we'll find the right time and the right price to come in, hopefully well below that threshold.
Yes, well said.
Well, my question, I'm sorry, just one question about timing, tying over to what you said. So, I guess at what point are you able to lock in? If the contract expires in June, at what point would you be able, how far in advance would you be able to lock down a price if there was something that came up that you thought was worth?
If we were to gain approval at the next board meeting to start the process, we then have the ability to lock in whenever we want, and that we still get the great rate through the end of our current contract.
Okay,
It doesn't replace it.
Yeah. So any of these forward-facing contracts would book into your current agreement. We would never want to overlay. So this would all be for that July 1 start date. So you can enter into it at any time, and then that rate would start effective July 1st.
I'm sorry if I missed this. So I can see that now is probably a good time to go out for a new contract, but was there an end date on the contract we signed in May 2020, or is that like an ongoing contract?
Yeah, so that expires June 30, 2022.
Okay.
Or 2024. What year is it? Thank you.
So we're kind of.
We got
so
6 months.
So we're kind of lucky that this dip is happening at the same time that our previous contract is
right.
expiring.
And that's the cool thing about energy purchasing is that you can look for those opportunities, and so that's why we're having this discussion now, even though it's snowing outside and seems the most inappropriate to be purchasing.
Okay, and then my other, I'm pretty sure I get this, but just for Tony. So if we max out the geothermal, if we decide to go that route and we have extra capacity that we would then start looking to convert some of project 1, right? To use that geothermal, so we might end up using less natural gas than we're currently using.
Yes, and I don't want to specifically say project 1.
Oh,
We'd be investigating other areas of the building that would make sense.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
mechanically,
yeah.
but yes, with the ultimate goal of aligning our energy usage with our sustainability goals of reducing that natural gas.
Yep, and the product type that you actually have quoted here is what's called the 100% swing. And what that means is that your usage can vary 100% above or below your anticipated monthly usage with no penalty. So if your gas usage goes down 42% or whatever it is, you would just have a 42% less gas bill. You would not be subject to penalties from the supplier.
Yes.
Okay.
So right now, natural gas is at about $3 a million BTU. You have the option to run a reverse auction anytime between now and June. And I assume, I mean, can you do that unlimited times if you don't like some of the initial results of a reverse auction?
Yeah, so for natural gas, we typically do not do the reverse auction just because there's the limited supplier pool. The reverse auction was for the electricity where we get to the 15 suppliers, and natural gas tends to be a lot more volatile. So the auction doesn't tend to produce as great of results. So for this district specifically, what we've done historically is a reverse auction for electricity. And for natural gas, we do just the traditional sealed RFP.
So if we're, okay, so gas is at $3 right now. What are you suggesting in terms of when you might want to run the bid process?
My take is, and Tony and I just discussed this a couple of weeks ago, would be to set 2 different markers, benchmarks for us to watch, because we can watch this pricing every single day. So one would be a ceiling price that we are not comfortable with, and one would be a floor price that we're trying to achieve. So that gives us some sort of parameters of what to operate within, because the market's going to go up and down every single day. 2 days ago, it was up 8%, then it came back down immediately the next day. So what I would suggest is we have ranges of 39 to 43 cents here. So if the market starts to go up and we're not comfortable with a rate that's above 50 cents, then you would act before it would go beyond 50 cents. Conversely, if we want to say hit 35 cents, let's wait. We have a little bit of runway. We don't have to sign a new agreement until June 15th for that July 1st start date. Let's see if we can get to 35 cents. You can set kind of those price triggers to monitor the market. And then really it's really dependent upon the district, and when you're planning that forward fiscal year budget, when you need those numbers, what kind of timing do you have to dedicate to this? Knowing that your gas usage is going down and the gas is the lesser of the 2 cents for your commodity, maybe it's something you want to set an internal timeline that we want this buttoned up no later than March for your internal planning processes. That's something that's really dependent on the district. For me, we can refresh the pricing every single day until we can't anymore. So that's completely driven by your directives and what you guys like to see.
So the floor ceiling is something that you just monitor, do you like, we can think about a market when kind of stop, but something you want to kind of put in there and watch to see that way.
I've been watching the market in the background since the contract started for these opportunities, which is why we're here tonight. But if you guys wanted more data to see, then we have, it's literally called the Market Watch, where we are monitoring that daily, where we refresh the pricing for the various terms.
And how is your firm compensated as our consultants?
Absolutely. So we are compensated on a per rate, per a fixed price per firm. So I believe it's 1.25 for these rates, so 2.5 cents per firm. And so that is the same as part of our RFP process. It's the same across all suppliers. So the district never writes our firm a check directly, similar to if you have like an insurance broker that you are paid by the insurance company. We are compensated for every unit of energy you consume in each month directly by the supplier.
So it's a cost plus, it's not an incentive based on a certain savings.
No, it's correct.
Thanks.
So the only thing we have a duration. So you have here, you show a 4-year window, and last time we did 4 years. What is the range that you can do? And
you can do whatever range you would like. We show easy terms here, 1, 2, 3, 4-year terms. But given that you have some pretty significant energy projects that you are considering, we can get as specific as you would like. If you'd like a 37-month term from when you're projected to have geothermal completed, we can get as specific as you would like. That's why I put here the percentage variances between the terms. You'll notice, I don't know why the 11% is in the first column, but you have the 13%, 15%, and 15%, showing the differences that between the different terms of, 4% difference between a 1-year term and a 4-year. the district deciding if those extra dollars are worth it for that price stability, for that time to not have to renegotiate a contract between now and any energy contracts. Again, I would defer to the district on what your preference would be in term length in this regard.
Does the administration have recommendations on?
Not that we've set actually firmly. Tony, do you have any range you want to speak to it?
Well, I would say using this as a good example, if this was to come in where, we see with Constellation, there's, a 9.4% difference for 12 to 48 months, but NG is only a roughly 4 cent difference or 0.4 cent difference. It's that would make me more comfortable. I think it depends on the data set that we see. One thing that I just wanted to point out, just in case anybody has a concern of that 100% swing that we talked about, and then, I just said natural gas is coming down 141%. Could we be in trouble? That was for the Project 2 footprint. I don't think we'd run into that 100% problem because we still have a large portion of our building that would not be hit here. But knowing our goals of reducing continually our natural gas usage, I would say 48 months is probably the longest I think we're going out, just so we don't run into penalty issues.
Okay.
Any additional questions? You all stayed awake for the entire presentation. I really appreciate it.
You explained it very well. Thank you.
Should we roll out with the next one?
We went A, B, G, E.
I think we're at C now.
Okay.
Going back up to C, this is the updated summer 2024 capital improvement scope. Which is needed because of the additional information. Stand out because of the project to work originally to our field house with this part of our summer scope, but that's no longer appropriate. So again, alignment with priority 4. This time board goal F2B, and this is policy 460. And I'm going to turn it over to our 3-person facilities team here, Tony, Kurt, and Jeff. Go ahead, guys.
Great. And I know you've all heard and read about him. I don't know if everybody has met Curtis Elsip. He's our director of buildings and grounds. And we have Jeff Bregman for our director of construction. And we had our 10-year capital plan that was brought forward and approved on, and we modified the scope. I believe it was my first or second month in the district. And 2 things became apparent to us between that point and where we are today. The first being, as we plan the use of the building and where activities will happen while Project 2 is ongoing, the idea of facelifting the field house with the flooring repairs and the painting and the lighting became concerning because of how much we need that field house. And if a project was to run a little bit behind, we don't always have that alternative space for the student programming. So that was a concern that we saw. The second being, again, this was actually my first day, we had a nice fire in our electrical generator room that knocked our transformers out. And we talked at that point about having a kind of a short-term solution that would need a longer-term fix. And what we found is that we need an additional generator for the building, not an additional transformer, but a generator. And we need to redo our vault and reconstruct that in a manner that if that was to happen in the future, it would be waterproofed and the water wouldn't get in there and cause a similar issue. We are still finalizing. It takes a long time. The insurance claim from that flood and fire, but every indication we have is that we're being compensated for the replacement of the transformers and such, but any modifications that we're making really fall to the district side. You know, the vault can't be modified to a new style vault, you know, on a check from the insurance company. So then in talking about, does it really make sense to do the field house work? Well, it didn't, but it created a hole of availability in work that needs to be done, and we need to get this vault done. So what we are proposing here is eliminating that facelift of the field house until after project 2 is complete, and replacing it with structural patching and repair work to make the vault watertight, and then providing that additional backup generator to relieve the pressure on our current generators that are at max capacity. And I don't know if either you guys want to add anything additional?
The only thing that I would add is that in the existing Comet vault, there are 4 transformers down there currently that created the fire that we had the fire in, and they were rendered useless when they were when all said was done. So those transformers also in part of this project with renovating the vault are going to be removed. We have to remove the lid off the vault and remove those transformers out. So that's also part of that work.
And dispose of, right? I mean, get rid of them too, right? We pull them out.
Yeah. No, that's a total removal. They go off site.
Okay.
Great question.
The
old transformers are not what I want to have anyway.
No, there is there an environmental risk to the district with those transformers? Because I know a lot of those old transformers have PCPs.
Currently, there is no risk, but they do have PCBs in them, a slight percentage. And that's going to be part of the contract that we are issuing out with the contractors to have that removed intact. Actually, what they do is they drain them first. They get that oil out, and then they remove the actual unit. Yes.
Then the other question I had for you, Tony, is there in the restructuring of the vault, would any of that fall under a requirement of any building ordinance by the village? I mean, so what I'm saying is maybe our current vault may have been grandfathered in, and there may have been changes in ordinances since it was built. And it, you know, would, if it's non-compliant now, do we have to make those improvements?
Okay, I can answer that.
Okay.
Previously, 2 years ago now, actually, it was in 2020, I think it was. We did some modifications to that vault. We rebuilt the staircase that goes down to make the staircase actually compliant. We redid there's like a lid that sits over the stairs themselves to keep them protected from the weather. We did some improvements like that to bring it up to code, so to speak, that made it safer, right? Currently, the structural things that we're talking about doing to it are in the actual roof of the unit, of the vault itself. There are concrete I-beams that are reinforced with structural steel, and some of that is starting to deteriorate and flake off. So we need to repair that, and it's very similar to the repairs that we did at the West Pool, to the sides of the pool. It can be structurally, you know, reinforced and rebuilt. So that's part of what we want to do. We want to go around the perimeters of it and seal any openings in the actual foundation to stop leaks from coming through. Excuse me. And the actual concrete cap needs to be sealed as well to stop water from dripping through the cracks. So that's really the structural stuff that we're talking about doing to it.
Okay, but that asking whether those changes are mandated by any village ordinance.
No.
This is Allison with FGM. Hi, guys. This is maintenance work, so it wouldn't trigger, it's not an alteration, so it wouldn't trigger any code upgrades or anything like that. It's maintenance work to ensure the water tightness of it. And so no, it would not be subject to any new or updated code requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mine, Tony, is more for you. It's more a kind of somewhat common question is that in general, as we talk about our long-term maintenance plan, as we kick things from, as we're moving these pieces around, okay, it's critical to understand, you see that every day, we don't. And so what may seem obvious is not obvious to us, to me, I'll speak to me. And so what that means, what I need to understand is, are we, if we're moving stuff to the future, what's it doing to the future? Are we changing what is the longer term maintenance cost projection? And what's that do to our financial analysis? We can always cut costs now and push things here, but if we're adding, then we need to understand that, and then that's part of the long-term financial assessment.
Sure, and that was one of the things we weighed as we first started to have this concern about the field house usage was, is there an impact that comes from waiting, whether it be the painting or the floors or the lighting? And it was determined, no, that there's not going to be a negative impact. It's just the negative impact is shifting that project to the end of project 2. And then, what does that do to the entire capital improvement plan? That will be coming forward next month. You'll see the revised 10-year plan on where everything lines up. What does this vault add? Because this was not a planned project, but this is new. And this is an all-in number, so the cost of the work plus any fees through FGM, we'd be looking at adding approximately 1.3 to 1.6 million to the 10-year plan. So while it has a financial impact, it's not one that will knock us off of our fund balance policy or goals.
Thank you. Yep, I think that covers.
We take 5.
We
Can I
can,
request a 5-minute break?
there's been a request for a 5-minute break. We can do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna time it.
I will do that.
And
You guys can sit for the track and field one.
Is that,
Where do you?
we get the team here? Track and field update.
Yeah, so this is our track and field update. We figured, we had previously committed because of questions from the board that we would bring, just an update on where we are with this project at this meeting. To the now newly open and available to the public track and field. Priority 4, board goal F1B and district policy 460 and 470,
Sure. Yeah, actually it was interesting. I believe it was after the board meeting. Tim, you and I had spoke and we were ready to open the track and it's, well, how do we get the word out? So this is just an update on kind of the completed project and then where the accounting stands for the project. As of last week, there's still final invoices to come in. So this isn't a final accounting of the project is where we're at, which is in a very good position. Can we go back to that track and field presentation?
Oh, sure. I gotta download it. Hold on a second. Sure.
If you'd like, and I could drive.
I have it. Oh, well, I have it.
Okay.
I can give you the remote.
Yeah, it's actually still up from the other presentation. So. Okay. So just a little background on where this came from. With track and field being our largest, most diverse extracurricular activity, we did not prior to this have our own regulation track on campus. There was an agreement with Concordia University Chicago to utilize their track in Myrtle Forest. That agreement concluded in the 2023 season, and there wasn't an option to renew. That led to, prior to my arrival, a new IGA done with the Park District that would see the creation of a 400-meter track built between the tennis court and football stadium with multi-purpose turf being at its center, and then a new multi-sport field for varsity baseball, and then renovated softball fields at the Ridgeland Common area. And then the IGA gives use of those areas for physical education, and then the Park District has use of some of the fields as well through the IGA. Originally, we were looking at May 23, the project kicking off. August 23, the Lake Street field being completed. October 23, track and field would be completed and Ridgeland Common work would begin. In November of 23, the Ridgeland Common field would be completed at a budget of $17.3 million. The actual timeline that existed, we did kick off in May. In August, the Lake Street field was completed. October, work began on Ridgeland Common field. In November, both Ridgeland Commons field were completed, and the track and field became substantially complete. What led to this delay was, if you remember back to the fall, we had a significantly wet period of time in the fall, and a lot of the adhesives that needed to be put down on the track to make sure that it sealed correctly and was lined correctly could not be done until it was dry and warm. And we hit a period of time that we couldn't have those two match up. The heat came with the rain and the cold came when it dried out. So it put us behind, but we did get them completed. We had a couple tech and security issues in December that we just wrapped up. And then we lined up the opening of the track to students returning this past week. So it's exciting, and we'll look at some pictures in a minute here. To give you a quick update on the project costs, again, that original $17.3 million budget is where we were. As of last week, we have paid a total of $14.6 million in invoices. There was another $303,000 of invoices that are outstanding and coming with the next accounts payable run. There was a contingency amount that went unused, and that was due to not needing some of the possible drainage that was built into the plan. So that will be a savings and money that is returned to the district, leaving us a current total of 14.29 million spent. Current unspent budget is just over $3 million. However, we know that there's still money outstanding on invoices that go through Pepper and then come in. So we anticipate we'll see this project come in approximately $700,000 to $900,000 under budget when everything is wrapped up. There's a couple odds and ends too that the district then purchases, and we're waiting for the right time. Things like the windscreens for the fields, just the things that are built into this budget. But if we were to purchase early, we'd have to find places to store them, where we prefer to have them purchased and installed at the right time. Here you have what Northfield looked like prior to the construction. This was interesting look at what Northfield looked like during the summer, during all of the work being done. And then that is a lovely aerial shot of the lined track and field. And actually, even yesterday in the cold, we had somebody come out and run in that field, and it's good to see it being used by the community already. The backdrop of the new LED lighting system was really nice for our Tradition of Excellence Awards. It really does just light up and bring a new feel to that space. Then we've got an aerial shot of the prior appearance of Ridgeland Commons in Southfield. Here we see Ridgeland Commons in progress. And there's the completed Ridgeland Commons area, and you see it's got the new modern look with the turf for our softball teams. Then Southfield, here's the turf taken off, the older turf. And there is it lined for baseball competition. So really, I think some of the questions revolved around, are we really going to end $3 million under budget? No, we're not. Just a quick walkthrough of kind of how billing for a project like this works. The subcontractors have to submit invoices in to our construction manager and to Pepper. They go through and they verify all of the work that's been done. They then pass it over to the architect who verifies their work, and it goes through an extra check and balance. It's then sent to the district, who we go through and make sure that everybody's, T's and I's are dotted and crossed, and it's sent to accounts payable. But overall, it was outside of the wet fall, a project that was done very well, and it's come out visually very appealing and looks great. So, are there any questions?
I feel like you're setting a precedent for project 2 to come in under budget. Looking forward to that.
It's always my goal.
I grew up on Star Trek, and Scotty, the engineer, saying, "No, it's like you cannot do it. The engines won't take it." So.
No, yeah, and really, I think this was a great project. I'd like to give a lot of credit, both for the budget and the timeline getting back on track to Jeff. If you remember, before Curtis was hired, Jeff was really filling 2 roles, breaking in a new assistant superintendent of business as well, who was learning everything he could about the district. And he stayed on those guys to stay on schedule, to when there was the right period of time to be warm, to be here and get it lined. Now we're at a spot that one of the punch list items will be, they'll come back out in the spring and just do a quick touch up on all the lines around the track. But Jeff really had his eyes on this from start to finish. Did a great job.
Yeah, I do have a question just for admin about communications about this. I mean, this is really everyone I've heard has been really thrilled about this project, right? And usually sees it as a big plus for the school and the park district and the collaboration and so on. So do we have like a communications plan for like now, like getting the word out? Come use this. We know it's snowing now, but you know, this is available to you, et cetera.
Yeah, Bob Skolnick is in the room right now, so there's that.
He's a runner.
Yeah, he is a runner. That's right, actually, you talked about that. But also, it is actually, I don't know if it's updated now, but I know that Karen Sullivan, our Director of Communication, has a plan to make it. And it might already be up there. Those scrolling images that kind of that go across our website. Yes, it's up there. There may be other things she has in the works as well, but at least making sure that we get the word out.
I'm just wondering about something like, like outreach to the various running communities. And so
Oh, I
might
see,
be-
sure.
Might be worth doing. So
We can bring it up in
a little feature in the newspaper about how fabulous this is. Exactly.
I just would advise not running on it this weekend.
Yeah.
Doesn't look ideal, so.
That's
Uh, quickly, Tony, we know that it was supposed to have been opened on Monday, public, the date was January 8th. Is there like a time restriction for when the public can use it? Well, and
yes,
is it open 24 hours?
Sure.
So
how do we kind of make sure it's secure, people are safe?
I have a sparse admin team in the back to fact check my information. I know it is open from dawn, right? We have our safety and security team, just like we did for the walking track, right? It used to be, and they said they go out there and make it part of the regular routine to unlock that and make it available. Now, the end game, the closing time for that, the point at which we lock it up, I believe it is in the ordinance for 10 p.m. That needs to be fact checked.
Okay.
But that, I want to be clear though, that does not mean that we would turn the lights on, right, until 10 p.m. That's not an agreement that we have, because of our neighbors and all of that. And also, I want a little clarifying piece of information in there. The access point that we are going to grant for the track is the gate that is in the walkway. If you can picture that, the east-west walkway between the tennis courts and the track. We are not going to open it up on Linden. And that was something that we came to as an agreement through the conversations that we had with our neighbors as we were first vetting and discussing this project, just to try to do our best to kind of limit undue traffic in that area because of the increased energy, that we would get into this project in that area. So, okay.
Yeah, and then I just want to make a comment, and I just want to thank Greg for this because it really is kind of your brainchild and in the negotiations with the park district to make all the pieces fit so that this could be done, and this is a huge improvement and an upgrade to our facilities. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, and thank you for that. I want to point out too, and we have from the very beginning though, while I appreciate that as far as it goes, this is something that was named as a possibility, or at least as an area of interest. I'm looking at you, Tim, in the original Imagine process. We just couldn't find a way to get it done, as I recall, in that process. So this really goes back in conversation well before my tenure in the district, and it's just good to see it finally come to fruition. So thanks.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you. Our last item is Apple.
It's totally county.
Yes, yeah, this whole meeting has been a totally organized show. This final one is the approval of the legacy switchgear as a tech item in the amount of $98,000. And this is, again, an item that is in line with priorities 3 and 4. I turn it over to Tony.
Sure, and this is an item that was approved in the budget, but again, similar to the laptops, is we have these major purchases. I'm a big believer in transparency, just bringing the approval to the board. These are switches that we have that have gone outdated. The quotes are attached from CDW, and the total cost would be $98,294. This will help support and improve our network infrastructure across the campus. And yeah, again, just to reiterate it, it's not a new cost, it's a budgeted cost. We're just looking for approval to place the order.
Well, I'm, next steps, it says for the board to approve, it's really, this is gonna be 2 weeks.
It'll be 2 weeks from now, correct?
In 2 weeks.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure
Yeah, thank you.
we're in sync here. All right, thank you. All right, I think that covers our finance items. So we can shift to policy.
Thank you.
Board governance, the only element that I have is, you know, as part of our board goals, there were various assignments granted. So I'm just kind of, this is a follow-up that we're kind of two individual or two-person teams to do various things, so how's everyone doing?
So I have a I have a drafting process that is building off of your norms starter document.
Okay.
And I would have that for you in time to review, and we could share it at the next meeting or anytime thereafter.
Thank you. Any others or anyone need any help? You know?
I don't think I had an assignment. Am I missing one?
We have one on some data that the team sent us on some community engagement data. So we got the data from the administration. We just haven't had to present them to the next, but we have Greg shared it last month with us.
Okay.
They're on. But we're a bit behind, but we will get them.
Okay. Anything else? This is just kind of a health check of, you know, I expect that at the next, you know, we'll kind of hit this a little bit harder and just make sure we're doing it. I'm just keeping it in mind that we have those various things. Okay. With that said, we can move to our policies for first read. Are there any questions for the policy modifications that have been put forth? And I believe this is tranche 2 of 3.
This is 2 of 3, takes us through, I'm sorry, this is third attempt at it. And it takes us through board policy.
Yep.
700s.
And I, you know, there were a couple minor questions, but I'm good. What? Fred?
Yeah, on the 7.60. It's requiring an answer.
Yeah, there's a question there about whether the board wishes to accept requests from district employees for their non-resident children to attend school in the districts on a tuition-free basis. So if outside our bounds, we want a district employee to have their kid come into the school.
So do we have to answer that question when we approve this?
We would 2 weeks from now. And the default position, the position we've had as a district, has been the no.
Will the administration
And
bring
we are not proposing a change to our default position.
Can I just ask for a 2-minute sidebar on something? Can you remind us who's on the policy committee that generates these policy changes as they come up?
From a board perspective, I'll defer to the board on that matter. I think that I can tell you our internal process for this when it comes through. They come through press. Lisa is our immediate liaison for that. She puts them together. Our district administrative team reviews them when they come through for questions like Fred's and, you know, various other reasons. We call the attorney occasionally if we have questions, so on and so forth. And then we prepare them, you know, for this conversation for the board. So there is no formal kind of board admin joint committee, to my knowledge, where we dive on it at this point. It might be in paper somewhere, but it hasn't been something that we've formally enacted.
Okay, I'll just leave you with a thought nugget. we're not gonna solve this problem right now. I'm just wondering if, and this came to mind as I was working on the norms. I'm wondering if there's a different way to do policy. Because if you think about it, a board really only has three missions. We set a budget, we employ a superintendent, and we set policy. So in my last gig, there was a policy committee that consisted of both admin and one or two board members. And then when these policy updates came out, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like printed out, so this can't be read. Instead of every board member looking at each line and trying to conclude what's the so what, somebody from the policy committee would do a quick key takeaway. This first one, that's just the deal where press update the language. The next one, maybe same thing. The third one you need to pay attention to, because this is a material change in something. How do we employ people, stuff like that. I'm gonna suggest in the norms draft, we might want to rethink how we do this because it's just too easy, I think, for board members, not this erudite group, of course, but future board members to just like, I don't know, I can't read the thing and I'm assuming it's okay. Administration did it. No board member touched it, even though we're responsible for it. So that's why I'm gonna leave you with that thought that we may want to think about a different approach to policy. I'm done. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, it's, you know, so one of the, you know, the formality of the policy committee has been through many cycles. It's constantly in flux, in large part based on what the work is in front of us. There's been times when on our plate was crafting of new policy, be it our, racial equity, our sustainability, et cetera. And so, and even a lot of the work that was done, you know, where Ralph and Sarah played a heavy hand in policy that kind of helped look at things. So there were, during those times, we have had a formal policy committee of two board members that met and really owned, in a sense, what you're saying. Okay, and then we've gone into other periods where, I mean, what you're doing is a lot of policy kind of refresh based on law. So your suggestion is, is not out of the world. It fits what we've done. We've just got to kind of figure out from a staffing and from what the work is. So it's a good thought. Appreciate it. Okay, with that said, I think we are now any future agenda items? Okay, I'm just trying to make sure sequentially we're good because we have closed session that we still need to return to. And then we have a special meeting, and our sequence is gonna be closed and then special.
Yep.
And closed is actually still part of our committee of the whole.
Correct. I believe what we need to do is go back into close. We need to come back in a committee to officially close.
Right,
committee
yeah, I'm saying we're not done
Yes.
with committee. We have to go back to close. So we're gonna recess open session and return to closed session to finish our business, and then we will return just for the purposes of closing our cow, and then we'll come and open our special meeting where we have to we have a few items that need action. So that's our sequence.
Can I be the second one? Second, thank you.
Okay, everybody who wants to recess, vote aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, closed session we go.
Okay, I move to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting at 10:19 PM.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Do I have to do anything, or are we ready to go? All right. I call to order a special board meeting at 10:19 and 40 seconds in the boardroom of Oak Park Middle Forest High School, and ask for roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Ms. Williams-Lee?
Here.
Dr. Maharaj? Here. Mr. Brisbane?
Here.
Mr. Arkin?
Here.
Mr. Costi?
Here. Our public comment? None. We have action items. Our first order action item, I move to approve the personnel recommendations, including new hires, leaves of absence, recommendation, and resignations.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Williams-Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
Yes.
Mr. Arkin?
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Costi?
Yes. I move to approve the 90% control estimate of $101,899,817.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna reiterate the statement I made, what was it, 2 weeks ago? When we last talked about this, or 3 weeks ago? Is, and I just wanna express my disappointment that within this number is not an athletic training facility. And I think that needs to happen. And going back to the original imagined plan, it was always within the scope without a defined space. And I just don't know how we can build what we're going to build for primarily, for a substantial amount of athletics and not having an adequate athletic training facility for our student athletes.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then roll call, please.
Mr. Arkin?
Yes.
Ms. Williams-Lee?
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
Yes.
Mr. Costi?
Yes. The motion passes. And next, I move, based upon and after the board's consideration of the written evidence and testimony presented at the residency hearing held on December 13th, 2023, the Board of Education finds that student number 202312 is not a legal resident of Oak Park River Forest High School District and is therefore not entitled to attend school in the district on a tuition-free basis. I also move pursuant to section 10-20.12A and 10-20.12B of the Illinois School Code that the Board of Education advise the parent who enrolled a student of the tuition for the tuition requirement for the student's attendance in the district during the 2022, 23 and 2023-24 school years.
Second.
And any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Williams-Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
No.
Mr. Arkin?
Yes.
Mr. Costi?
Yes. And lastly, I move to approve of the mediation agreement payment of $47,400 for the resolution of the dispute regarding the special education placement of student A.
Second.
Any discussion? And a roll call, please.
Mr. Britston,
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Ms. Williams Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Grandhorst.
Yes.
Mr. Kowski.
Yes. That completes our action items. We've already had future agendas, so I'll skip over that. And with that, I move to adjourn the special meeting at 10:25 PM. And all in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned.